Welcome to Concept Will Being the podcast, where the intention is well, but let's be for real. Life gets a little chaotic, and so do we. And that's totally fine. It's fine. You're fine. I'm fine. We're literally fine. And we're all about finding the balance while staying honest with health, wellness, and all the juicy topics that matter. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Concept Will Be in the podcast, where the intention is well. My name is Jade, and I will be your host for today's episode. And today's episode is all about the concept of personal potential. Now, to help me unpack this, I am joined by Daisun Cohn-Williams, a success and life coach, executive functioning expert, as well as an educator and founder of Day One Coaching and Consulting. Daisun has spent decades helping people, whether that be teens or full-grown adults, tap into their true potential and let go of societal shoulds. So if you've ever felt like you're behind in life, like you should have it all figured out by now, or if you feel like personal growth is just some chaotic experiment that you're like, what am I doing here? Don't worry. We got you. I'm super excited for today's chat. Let's get into it. Welcome, Daisun.
Here.
All right, let us kick it off with a moment. Daisun, do you want to kick us off with a moment for the podcast?
Well, I'm grateful that in these tumultuous times, I have, new family to focus on. And so, I counter all of the extreme turbulence that everyone's going through with very micro moments of, seeing a little person start to develop and smile and stuff like that. And there's hope there. I think that's
And we
something
need
to
hope.
be grateful for. We
Yeah.
need hope.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm lucky. It's like perfect. It feels scary because the times are shifting so quickly, but it feels like it's the perfect time because of the hope.
I love that. Thank you for sharing your grateful moment. I am going to share a wellness moment, not as deep as yours. My wellness moment is my affirmations that I've been doing in the morning. Usually try to do morning affirmations, but I'll be honest with you, like sometimes I forget. Like sometimes even I'll have them like taped up to my mirror like a little post-it mark. I'll just forget. So my new wellness thing that I am really focused on right now is I put my affirmations in the shower. So then like there's nothing else to do in the shower except look at the wall. And so I'm like, you might as well do affirmations there. So I just tape them up in there. And I don't think I've missed an affirmation in like 3 weeks now. So that is my wellness moment. Yeah, exactly. Because I'm gonna shower every day. So like I'm not missing affirmations. Yes. So that is my wellness moment. It has been very helpful for me. Yeah. So thank you for like supporting me in my wellness moment.
I love that. I think that's
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you so much.
And
I
can I mention something interesting?
Yeah.
I have not been meditating a lot lately. I used to do it a lot. And it was part of my daily ritual and practice, and I felt it was very important. And every time I meditate for long periods of time, continuously, I'm always like, I will never stop meditating again. This will never happen. It always happens. It always happens. So something happened, and I was feeling a little stressed. And I went to an old meditation that helps me recenter away from worry. And I felt very in tune with this guided meditation. I did everything was asked of me. I felt into it. I was in that place. The future looked bright. I felt at peace. I was like, huh. And tell me later that day, I didn't get a call. A bunch of money just being dropped in my lap. It's like, wait, what? Okay.
That worked out. Yeah, like the connection between those two. You're like, okay, well, maybe all I needed to do was meditate. Okay.
I will say it's happened to me enough times where I've been focused enough. And I don't know what the word is. Some people call it manifestation. Some people call it, just being in line with, whatever it was. I've had this happen enough times where I got to stop forgetting to meditate. It's like, I got to stop. My life would be totally different if this kept happening. But every time I do it and I'm in that place and I step out of the anxiety and I step into more of an abundance mindset, just feel like, remembering like, no, I'm good. Everything's good. Like every we're living, we're making it happen. Things tend to go well, and usually rapidly. So that's sort of my little. So I love that you're doing this every day. That's.
Thank you. Can I ask you though? And I feel like this kind of, I mean, our conversation today is about personal potential, but just taking a break sometimes I think is helpful. So do you think that, I know that there's like the idea of like we must be consistent in everything when we're doing something, but do you think that maybe there is a benefit in like taking a break and then coming back to something that you think is really helpful for you?
I think it depends on the circumstance. I once heard Will Smith. When he was still Will Smith. It's every he won. I think he talked about self discipline as a form of love, self love, and the consistency that comes with discipline being one of the ways that he looks at loving oneself, that he defines as self love. And there's something powerful because to accomplish things, it does take discipline. It does take consistency. If you start and stop and start and stop, it's very hard to keep building on whatever progress you've made. And that's in anything. That's in therapy. That's in building a business. That's in writing a book, whatever it is. And at the same time, the hope is that we've crafted a life that's balanced enough that we don't need to take huge breaks from things to recharge. That hopefully our lives are set up in a way where we're constantly recharging ourselves. So we can stay consistent when it comes to the things that we truly want to focus on. The other piece is sometimes you just get burned out and
Mhm.
you're not making progress anymore. You shut down. There's a whole method for studying work called the Pomodoro method.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is you do 20 minutes of something, you take a 5 minute break, you do 20 minutes of another thing, because the brain starts to get too comfortable doing one type of thing. And so you're really efficient at the beginning, and little by little as time goes on in any given work session, the efficiency drops. But if you were to pivot to something else you have to do, the efficiency will bounce up again because it's a new thing. And
Mhm.
so you can kind of rotate with different things, take a bigger break after an hour, and then go back to the original thing. And so for some people, especially people with ADHD, it's a great alternative way of approaching study, work, household chores, etc. So I think it depends. There's value depending on, you know, how you set up your life, how much stress you're under. I think creatively, sometimes people need to step away from something. They're too close, and then they can come back to it with fresh eyes. But the
Yeah.
goal, I think, is consistency for most of us.
Okay. I liked the Pomodoro example though, where it's like you're not exactly stopping, you're kind of like pivoting a little bit to something else to focus on that and then you're coming back to it. So, yes, I think that it does depend on like the person and everything.
It does, but I would say like the Pomodoro method, when it comes to sort of like, okay, here's my life. There's all these things I like to do, things I want to focus on, priorities. And then sometimes there's too many. And you could be rotating around Pomodoro style, for like a week here or a month here or a year here and then pivoting. And it's okay if you are really truly no longer interested in that thing, or that's just not the priority anymore, or you've kind of redefined yourself or clarified what you actually want. But if every week I have so much time to, I don't know, whatever, work on writing this script or this book, right? And then, oh, but you know what else I want to do? I want to build this, small business. Oh, but you know what else? you know, like you could have so many things and you're just jumping around and you never make real progress on any of them. So, I think the Pomodoro method is great, especially within some like a specific thing. Because let's say you're trying to build a business, you need to build a website, you need to investigate, and do research into that market. You need to, there might be several things that you need to do in within that business or the building of that business. Then the Pomodoro method makes sense because Maybe you can't focus for more than 20 minutes of research. Maybe building a website isn't your thing. So a little bit every day is great, but just focusing the whole every day on it is not you. That's okay. But I would, if it's like, four different professions and you're just doing, I mean, my take is it's very hard to hit whatever goal you have if you're that disparate in your approach to things and in your focus.
Okay, first of all, we got way deeper into the conversation than because I was just gonna go into like all of the questions, but I never even asked you like personal potential, like what it is. But I did have questions about like being like a multifaceted person and how to reach your full potential, being that kind of person, which I feel like we kind of jumped to already. But before we continue into that conversation, can you tell us what personal potential actually is? And then we will continue our conversation.
Yeah, I will. And I, that we also jumped over who the heck am I? Like,
Right,
who is this
like
guy?
sorry, like we just got deep. Okay, so tell us first what personal potential is and how you got into what you're doing now, which is helping people reach their full potential. We just jumped right into it.
Jump right into it. So they are wrapped up together
Okay.
for sure. I was a teacher. So coming out of college, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I was a writing major, writing and political science. In fact, I was an independent major. So I created a social political writing major. I wanted to be like Cornell West or something, or James Baldwin. I wanted to write about things going on in the world. And I was also a theater minor. I'd been working off Broadway as a teenager in New York. I'd done shows with a theater company and went through school. I kept doing it, college, kept doing it. And when you're at the end of college and you've got an English major
I
and a
know,
theater
yeah.
minor, what you going to do with your life? It's
Hmm.
kind of one of those things. And I got an opportunity to go to Tufts for a master's degree in teaching, and I took it because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, but the path to get there seemed very blurry. So, it was like I could go to New York, I could intern at a magazine. It didn't seem interesting. And they didn't pay interns at that time either.
Yeah.
This is before that changed. And then I was like, do I go to Hollywood? Do I go back to New York? Do I try to figure out this acting? So I was teaching. And so firsthand, I came into contact with potential, and a different level of potential than when you're dealing with adults. Because, with adults, they're usually on a path already, and you see, oh, you're really good at this thing you're already doing. And with teenagers, it's all potential. And it's just screaming out of them in a million different ways that I think often even their parents might not always notice. So that's where I started. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I was tutoring and I was doing SAT prep, and I found my way into coaching teenagers and families. So that my business started first with young people because that's what I knew, so well. And then out of that came coaching with families as a whole and then adults as well. But with the young people, it was the same thing. And what I noticed was that parents, especially in wealthy markets, see their children's potential through the lens of what works, quote unquote, in society already. So, like, how are you going to get that money, or that title, or the respect that comes with it, and then the house and the kids and the cars and whatever it is. And in Los Angeles, there's so much money in some parts of Los Angeles, and they're very busy parents, right? And so sometimes those parents aren't even home a lot. So there was a world for me to step in and be able to assist them when addressing their kids, those kids that were struggling, whether it was they were struggling academically, they were struggling behaviorally, the family wasn't in sync, the kids had ADHD divergencies that were getting in the way of them performing at the level and in the way that those parents had been conditioned to see were essential. And so some of it was a lot of like, fix my kid, and it was like, well, okay, let's see, how do we fix your kid? And I quickly realized that a lot of the issues that those kids were struggling with came from their parents, excuse me, or what the experience was like in school with teachers structure, depending again if the kids had ADHD or if they had depression or they had, anxiety, and I'd be working with their therapists and their psychologists and trying to sort of be an arm of those people, but in the home to assist the parents. And you realize that it's not just that it's not the parents' fault necessarily. It's that the society that we live in has sort of told us what potential is. And it's always outside in, right? It's always like, oh, man, you got so much potential. You could be a doctor. You could be a lawyer. You could be you know, you're gonna be able to do it one day. You're gonna hit these marks. Like, oh man, you can get into Harvard, And oftentimes when you see a young person really struggling, they are not in line with this pre-scripted idea of what potential is that's being put on them, right? Same with adults, but it's with kids. Teenagers are at that moment where they're sort of being asked, start figuring it out. What's the path you're going to take that lines up with what our society tells you is good? And so instead of allowing the kids to form for themselves in understanding of what direction they should be going with their life, how they should be spending them, where they want to focus, study, play, whatever, we sort of are framing them, within pre-scripted boxes. Choose a box. And the farther you go in that box is you living out your greatest potential. So I saw it. I saw it in the school, because you can't work in a school in America, no matter how good the school is, and not see the problems in the way our education system works, especially for most kids, because everybody doesn't hit the bullseye directly of what the education system says is an A plus, right? And then I saw it in the family homes, and I started to realize that for these kids to start to change the way that they were interacting with people, how they were looking at themselves, how they were moving through school, etc., we needed to start really working on figuring out who these kids are, as opposed to who do other people want them to be.
Yeah.
And that's where this whole idea came from. It was about, if we start within, we'll find what our personal potential is, our unique potential that's unique to all of us. And we'll find it if we can sort of tune out what the rest of the world is telling us it should be and figure it out for ourselves. So yeah, it's all tied in. My path led me to this idea.
Yeah.
And for myself as well.
Okay, so how do you know, like, when someone hits their personal potential? Like, what does it feel like for a person when you're helping them find it?
I don't I have I guess my question for you is, can you hit it? Can any of us ever hit potential? Or are we just moving towards it?
God, I hope so. I think so. Like, I feel like, can you ever hit your potential? I would hope so. I guess you're right. Maybe it's something that you're always working towards, which is kind of depressing. I'm not gonna lie to you. So, do you think that a person can hit their potential, or are they always like working towards it?
Well, I think people can hit their purpose.
Okay.
And so I think the way that I look at it is, the hope is that we find purpose.
Okay.
I do subscribe to the idea that everybody is unique, right? There's no two people that have ever existed. And we bring our own something to this world, to this plane of existence. I once heard there's a place in LA called Agape, and the reverend there, it's a non-denominational kind of spiritual center that takes from all religions. I once heard this guy talking, and he said, everybody on earth is a brand new expression of the universe, essentially. God, universe, whatever. And we're all here to allow that universe to manifest through us in a new way, to experience life or existence in a new way. And I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But the practical sense of that is, there's no two people that are the same, which means, for each and every one of us, life should look different, right? And it does, at the very least on the inside, whether we realize it or not, to some degree. There's similarities, of course, but we are unique. And so, my work with people is, how do I help you find purpose, right? What you feel so passionate, so strongly that you are here to get involved with. And when you have that, it doesn't really matter the medium that you manifest it through or actualize it. So my example is, if you want to help people, I'll be very general. I'm here to help people. Okay, well, you could be a doctor, you could be a teacher, you could be a civil rights attorney, you could be a sanitation worker, like you could be anything if you're doing it through that purpose, right? Hopefully, people then take passion and the things that they just like to do and they love to do. And then hopefully they can channel purpose through that, because then you're not going to stop. You're just going to keep wanting to do more of it, but purpose, I think, is the foundation. And then when you're really doing that, your potential, you're moving in that direction naturally, because you're in alignment with what your most authentic self wants and is here for. So, can you hit an endpoint of potential? Would you want to? Or would you want to be able to keep expanding in that direction and growing? And I think that's the real thing. I hope that people find purpose, but I don't know that they'll ever hit potential, and they don't need to. But hopefully they're still moving in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying the difference between your purpose and your potential, because I feel like that was needed for the conversation.
And passion. And I would say
Yeah.
just that one last piece. I think they're different things, but they're interconnected for sure.
Can we go back to our chat about like the multi-passionate person then? And like, okay, so let's say I'm a multi-passionate person. I like to do, I don't know, I'll give random swimming. I don't like swimming. I mean, I could swim, but like, I don't like swimming like that. And then I like to build houses and, I don't know, ski. And so these are all, actually, I hate all of those things. But that's not the point. I hate snow sports. I don't even know why I said those ones, but I wanted to give something like out of the box. But let's say those are my passions that I really wake up in the morning. I'm like, that's my thing. Those are my three things that I want to do. Can I, does my purpose have to be one thing? And as a multi passionate person, can I reach my purpose slash potential having all of these passions?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know that purpose has to be one thing, but even if you had felt like you had one purpose for being here and what you want to be doing with your life, you can still express it in different ways, right? You're not limited in one way in how you bring that purpose forward. I think the real thing for look, I work with a lot of people with ADHD. I work with a lot of neurodivergent people, and the hard part about that is it's so easy to lose focus, and it's even for adults, not just young people. How do you stay focused so that you can keep moving forward in the space that you are excited about, that you feel like you're here to do? Like if you found some level of purpose, and then you found a professional vehicle to carry it out, well, there's other vehicles too, right? And so how do you prioritize? And generally speaking, from the research I've done over the years and what I've read of, people say you got like two things. If you're trying to do more than two things, it's going to be really hard. And for some people, it's hard to do more than just one thing at a time. But how you prioritize and how you organize your day, your week, your year, how you create systems to keep you focused and in line are all very important. So you can actually keep achieving in whatever the direction is that you're supposed to go. So I don't, again, there's interests and passions. You might love skiing and swimming and building houses, and there might be a time and place for all of those. And maybe none of those have to do with your purpose. Maybe some of them do. But I think how you build a logical way of moving forward. Look, in the end, we all have to pay the bills, and we're all trying, there's a practicality to being alive on Earth. Like, we got to pay to play. Maybe it shouldn't be that way, but
Yeah.
being alive costs money. just flat out. Nobody talks about that, but straight up, it costs money to be alive and to experience this. And so you have to keep that in mind too, obviously. But when you're trying to achieve, when you're trying to transform, when you're trying to find a direction and get clarity and move forward, towards smaller goals, bigger goals, etc., you got to build in a way of doing things that allows it to keep happening, even if you decide today I want to go swimming. Okay, that doesn't mean that it's going to take away from your priorities. You just have to be clear where it stands on your priorities. So a lot of coaching with professionals who are trying to figure out either where they want to go in the chosen path they're already on and how to progress, or when they're not sure that that's what they want to do anymore and they want to transform their life or they want to transition into a different direction. A lot of it is about building, this is coaching, helping them build very concrete steps towards goals, even if the goal is figuring out the goal. Because naturally, not everybody has that ability. For some people, that is so easy. And for other people, it is not easy. Like you got ADHD, that is not an easy thing to do. So I think a lot of it's about prioritization. Hobbies and passions are not necessarily purpose, but they can be. They can be part of that.
I want to go back to kind of earlier you said like, and I know you said you work with a lot of people that have ADHD, but you kind of mentioned like making sure that they're able to be focused. So let's say I figured out my purpose, and I'm trying to focus on it. Like I'm like, okay, that's what I know I need to be doing. I Let's say I don't have ADHD. I might. I'm not gonna lie to you. But let's say I don't. Why then do I start to procrastinate? Like I know what I need to be doing, but what is like the logic behind me knowing what I need to do, but still procrastinating?
There's so many different perspectives about what procrastination actually is. For some people, with neurodivergency, it's not a choice necessarily. But then in other cases, there's anxiety around procrastination as well. So again, when you're in school, let's say you're in middle school or high school, every day you go to school. And when you're in school, there's a set, amount of tasks that you have put in front of you. And you don't really have time to procrastinate. Some people do, they talk on the side, they lose focus, but they don't really have time to procrastinate. Procrastination comes when there's nothing forcing you in that moment in a structured way to get something done. There might be a deadline of some sort, but not right there, present in the moment with you. And so where does it come from? It comes from anxiety, it comes from self-doubt, it comes from a million avoidance. It comes from not being able to focus, right? And fearing what that mountain is in front of you. So with people with ADHD, what we do is we ask them to chop everything up into bite-sized bits, right? So if you've ever seen What About Bob back in the day, the movie with Richard Dreyfuss, and someone's going to hate me for blanking out right now because my mind is blank of my favorite actor ever. But he said this phrase, baby steps, because the guy had a lot of anxiety and all this. It was like baby steps up the stairs, baby steps through the door. And that's sort of what we're talking about. It's Bill Murray. Can you believe I forgot Bill Murray's name? That's crazy.
It's okay.
People won't hate me anymore. I remembered.
It's
So you
okay.
take baby steps.
Okay.
You break things up. If you have a paper due in 2 weeks, as opposed to doing it the night before, that which many people do, right?
I do. Yeah, that's that's my jam now. Like I'm like, it doesn't need to be done. I won't do it until, and then I feel like sometimes it comes out better because I waited until the last minute. Like there's no like, oh, I'll just do like I guess like the way that we were taught to like write papers and stuff is like do a rough draft and then like from the rough draft, like rewrite it again. And then like the final draft. And then it's like, no, no, no. Let's just do the final draft. Get it right the first time. I think that that's as good as it's gonna come. Like, I felt like that's some of my best work right there against the deadline. I didn't used to be like that though. Like, it used to be, I used to do the first and second draft and then third, but now I'm like, let's just do all the third, like, let's just get to it. So, yes, that is,
Well, I
that's
don't
where
want to
things are
judge.
at.
As a former teacher, I guarantee you could have given me something better. And you know what's funny? When I was in college, I had a teacher, a professor. She was just amazing. Her name was Professor Julia Jordan Zachary, and she was my advisor for a couple years before she bounced to work at Howard as a full professor. And man, I almost left and went with her. But I remember I was in one of her classes one semester, and I had a paper, and I finished. I got that paper done, most of it the night before, and I felt real good about myself.
Hmm.
It was a political science class, and I got the paper grade back, and I think it was like a B minus or something like that. And on it there was a note that said, basically, don't ever disrespect me or yourself again by not making proofreading this before you hand it in. This was an A paper. So even that, sometimes it's even that, because when you are proofreading something, this is before AI was proofreading stuff, and AI even still messes things up. But even if it was just like I got this paper done at the last second and I did a quick read through, I can't do a proper read through and edit because I'm too close to it because I just wrote it. I
Hmm.
need to have multiple times or people to give it to read my work, etc. And what that did to me, because I was a last second person too, in many ways, um,
Okay.
is it started to check the way that I approached work, because it's never as good. I'll give you another story. I have a buddy in Los Angeles. His name's Charlie Hoffheimer. He's been acting since we were in middle school. I talk about him sometimes for other reasons when I do podcast stuff. But in this case, I'll say one time he told me that for years he'd been skating by, where he would go in an audition, and he was not fully prepared and he would just go for it. And when he was younger, sometimes it would work, right? And as he got older, he realized that that was not the job, that preparation was the job, that that was not him being professional in the
Hmm.
thing that he so called was his life's work. And he had to mature and grow up. I think, when you do things last second, you get that high because you're getting dopamine hits. It's a dopamine rush. The anxiety is,
It's
oh, I got to get this
exciting.
out.
You're like,
That's right.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Right. And when you are being asked to do something a little bit at a time, there's no dopamine reward for that, right? Procrastination comes because it's just it's not enough. For people with ADHD, they now believe that dopamine is the chemical that allows the brain, different parts of the brain, to communicate smoothly. And when you produce less dopamine, there's hiccups. And sometimes that hiccups looks like a loss of focus. So people with ADHD thus would have naturally producing dopamine levels at a lower level than neurotypical people. And that is one of the reasons why statistically neurodivergent people, specifically people with ADHD, ADD, ADHD, it's the same thing how they classify it now, are more likely to drugs, reckless, impulsive activities, jumping out of airplanes, unprotected sex. I mean, you go down the list, because it is the excitement that produces the dopamine and it corrects their levels to some degree. But the problem is when you're getting these big spikes of dopamine, it's really hard to be okay with a small release of dopamine that comes with, okay, I got the first page done today, get the next page done tomorrow. But when you wait till the last day, I got it all done. Yeah. You feel it, and the next day you crash because you're exhausted,
Right.
and it's never going to be as good, because you can camouflage, you can cover it up when you're smart and talented and
Yeah.
skilled. And what I find with young people is there's usually a point in middle school and sometimes high school where the work is so much more, the expectations are so much more, the demand is so much more, they can't cover up anymore. And so now the fact that they struggle with organization, time management, having a clear system of how to approach everything, even remembering what to do, like having it in one place, starts to really hurt them. Whereas when they were younger, they could skate by and they're this amazing talent and originality, it was just like there. And as time goes on, it becomes harder, and they really do have to learn those systems because it can stay with them throughout the rest of their life. So procrastination has its origins in a lot of this stuff. And I think for all of us, when we find ourselves doing that, yeah, the question is why? What are we afraid of? What potentially are the neurochemical reasons, right? Is it the anxiety that comes with how am I going to focus long enough to get all of this done? And then it's looking around, it's like, well, what is what are the systems that I live my life in? Because I'm self-employed on multiple levels as an actor and as a coach, and so I have to build systems in my life to organize my time, to stay focused, to make sure things get done. Otherwise, a lot of things get left on the side, and that hinders me in the goals that I'm trying to achieve. Right. And I don't have as many last second opportunities anymore either, because, I don't have, a presentation that's due at an office meeting tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't have, so I have to create it for myself and allow myself to be comfortable living within structures that I built for myself. And there is nothing harder for some of us than doing that.
This feels like that fun time of the year where I need to ask my therapist if I'm neurodivergent again. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so I have one more question for you before we move into the next section, which is myth or fact. Is there anything that like you think is like maybe like a misconception or anything that you would want to make a statement on for like finding someone's purpose or like reaching potential or anything like that? Is there anything that you want to kind of give to the listeners?
Well, I mean, you have to want to. You have to sort of have the mindset already that this is something that's of value or worth your time. Most of us don't have time, so unfortunately, most people, they're living paycheck to paycheck, at least in this country. And most people's nervous systems, always activated because of that. Where am I going to get this money for? How am I going to feed my kids? Oh my God, someone got shot on the news. Or every time, not to get blue, but every time Donald Trump is in office, every day, there's never a calm news cycle,
Yeah.
right? And I think part of that's purposeful, for whatever. But I mean, it means that all of our nervous systems are constantly on the go. That means people don't have time to stop and really level out and think about how they're living their life. What do they want for themselves? Is this what I want? Not as much as I would guess people would. When I was in grad school, I was young. I was like 24, 23, 22, whatever it was. There were 40 something year olds in my class. And I remember asking them, so you just decided to stop being a lawyer or an accountant or whatever they were? That took a lot of courage. I realized years later, especially, like how much, maybe because they had the money to take a second, but to actually think, do I want to do this? Is this what I wanted? Is this what I'm here for? Is it making me happy? What do I actually want to do? I don't think people get many opportunities to stop and think about that.
Yeah.
And I can tell you in Hollywood, nobody does, because there's a cycle of certain times of the, or at least there used to be certain times of the year for auditions, for certain things, episodics or movies or whatever. Then there were, pilot seasons, and then you're looking for a new agent season, and then you're looking for and you just go around and around and around for years and years. And funny enough, that same friend of mine, Charlie, I remember when I moved out here years ago, talked about this moment in his life where he actually stopped to think about it. Is
Mm-hmm.
this what I want for myself? And he had never done that because he'd been a child actor, right? So he just sort of got drafted into this world. Well, I was a child actor. There's money here. There's fun here. There's some level of like people thinking I'm cool here. Identity stuff gets mixed up in it. But he never found Charlie in that process. So he actually was going through a moment where he wasn't working at all and he had to question it. Is this what I want for myself? Is this who I am? And he found that at least for that time, yes, he was a storyteller. This is what he was passionate about and he cared about. And it's funny, I was talking to him yesterday and I was reminding him of this because I do work with a lot of people in the industry as well. A lot of them are trying to transition out. Many are trying to figure out how to survive, especially this time period where things are changing drastically. And, I know most people don't have like tears for people in Hollywood, but like this is a working class town.
Mm-hmm.
Actors are working. You've seen actors on TV who are not able to make their health insurance every year because they work so little. Like people you're familiar with. Everybody is working, hustling. They have side jobs. They're waiting tables. They're doing whatever. And we don't have restaurants have shut, especially since the fires and the strikes and the pandemic. So we've had several years where people have struggled more and more and more, and they've needed to leave the industry. And a lot of that becomes work around, okay, why are you in the industry? What is that still what you want to do? Right. And you're fighting against all of this energy of like, first of all, it's hard to change your path
Yeah.
that you've been doing. Your identity is tied up in it. And so you don't often stop to think about that your job may just be what you do. Like, why is it, part of who you are? And then what are you going to do if you do something else? How do you do that? That's very hard for people to do. It's scary. And it takes a long time for many people to make that shift and transition to new things. And I think it starts with, who am I? Like really actually doing a deep dive into you, into the identity. Who is Daisun? Who is Jade? Who is Joe Schmo? Whatever, right? Because it's good to double check. Is the thing that I do what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing? Do I care about it any? Is it the vehicle, right, through which I want to execute purpose and, whatever? Those questions are important. They start with ourselves. We've got to figure out what makes us tick, why we want to do this, why we've been doing this. A lot of people that I talk to, many people out here who got into work in Hollywood, for what later they realized might not have been the most noble reasons or the
Mm-hmm.
most aligned reasons. Right? Actors have an idea often of stardom and glitz and glamour. The average actor out here in SAG-AFTRA makes under $20,000 a year doing union work. So once you're in the union, that's all you can do. Imagine that. So the glitz and the glamour, the average actor makes under 20,000 a year. That's not even enough to get union health insurance, right? So, and then even I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there was this actress, I'm blanking on her name. She's been in many things, some Star Wars stuff. The Joy Luck Club was where she really blew up. The Last Karate Kid, all this stuff. And she talked about this really cheap, low budget film she did. It was like a Sharknado vibe, right? And she was
Okay.
saying like, oh yeah, I did it because I needed the health insurance. I needed to make my health insurance, right? So you realize like, I'm doing this stuff. Why did I start to do it in the first place? Was the idea that I love drama, I love theater, I love acting, or if you're behind the camera, I love making films, or I love sound, editing sound, or whatever it might be. And that holds true for any profession, anywhere where we find ourselves, especially years down the line. Why did I get into this? Was it for the reasons that I thought? Now that I'm finally looking back, who am I? What do I actually want to be spending my time focused on in life? And then once you have that, you can figure out what is the vehicle that you want to bring it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I think purpose is the driver towards potential. And passion is the thing that can help you move towards, take your purpose and move it forward. I have a passion for working with young people. I now have a passion for helping neurodivergent people get organized and build their executive functioning skills, because I see where it sabotages people like myself at times. I have a passion towards helping people transition towards purpose because I think there's something beautiful there about us challenging the ideas that have been put on us and instead creating life for ourselves in the way that we want to live it. And hopefully doing it in a way that we can actually still afford to live on this earth. And so that passion that I've developed aligns with this purpose where I think that I can do. I think that I've learned over the years I have the ability. People respond for whatever reason. People will respond to me. Yeah, I'm 44 years old. I have 11-year-old clients that think I'm cool. They trust me. Like, that doesn't usually happen. So for whatever reason, that might just be my thing. I got a lot of things that I'm not good at, but the things that I'm good, I'm like, oh wow, like there's purpose there. What I'd also learned over the years was my purpose is not in booking a guest star on NCIS.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool, but I don't know if it's a purpose, even if I have passion there. And I think distinguishing between purpose, passion, and potential and where these things come into our lives is super important if we want to create a life for ourselves that we really are proud of and where we're really living our best self.
Mic drop. So basically, you got to go in. You got to go inwards, and it comes from, yeah, and figure out your why and everything. You didn't ask, but I'll tell you. I feel like there's like that's kind of like what we're here to do a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, what else is there to do other than that and like fall in love? You know what I'm saying? Like, those are the two things. Like, hit those two things. I feel like you had a good life.
You ever been in a conversation or just on the side listening to two people talk and they just talking about some bullshit? It's like, oh yeah, you got your drains declogged, cool. Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, oh yeah, that's a cool toilet seat. Oh yeah, sometimes people, the conversations that they have with each other, they're just, I don't want to. It's like I'm. It's not that I'm judging. It's that
Mm-hmm.
I can recognize a conversation that's not allowing two people to get to know each other, to
Mm-hmm.
connect. And there's reasons why people don't want to connect, and sometimes they're afraid to connect. It's unconscious, etc. But in general, we don't go deep. So like when we started this, you're like, man, we got deep right away. And in my head, I was like, what else is there? Let's go. Like let's go all the way. Let's delve into each other because that's interesting. And I
Yeah.
yeah. So yes, go deep. And what's funny? I know we're wrapping up, but I had a student, a client for years, and towards the end of high school, when he was applying to colleges, we started working on his college applications. And I think this was him. I think based on his upbringing and just maybe from being around me a little bit, he was willing to go in right away into some pretty profound spaces instead of like the generic stuff, which for any of your listeners who have kids, I'll tell you right now, colleges have seen 99% of the essays that the kids write already. So if these essays are not just steeped in the unique identity and experience of your kid that sets them apart in the way they see the world, etc., it's not going to help. It might not hurt, but it's not going to help. So this kid did. He went for it. And I pushed him and I pushed him and I pushed him. The whys, the why this? Okay, well then why that? We went down all the way into the bottom. One of the colleges he got into, I think, was Dickinson, which is a very good school, and in his acceptance letter, literally shouted out his essay to him. Like, we were taken aback by your essay about this and this. You are the person we want. And it's because he was willing to go deep, and I've seen that. The college essay is such an interesting place because after that, none of us are necessarily asked to ever be like that in public
Mm-hmm.
with people we don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe in therapy and, but like not with strangers. I had a girl once who wrote about like being captain of the volleyball team. And I was like, great. How many captains of the volleyball team are writing this? And we pushed it deeper, deeper and deeper. Well, what did we find out? She had two twin little sisters that look up to her. And she realized that everything she does, the way she carries herself, how she approaches things, consciously at first and then consciously, was about being a role model for these little girls. Oh my God, what a college essay it turned into. She got into a bunch of schools too. And so, I say to everybody, we're all so afraid, even in this period of time where everyone's sharing everything online, no one's being real. And I say, just like,
Hmm.
be real. Like, that's how you connect with real people. You have real experiences. And yes, when you're trying to get a job, sometimes some places, the places that might be meant for you, they want to know you. What are you bringing to the table? So I think it all starts with identity. Sorry, I could go on for years
No,
with
that
this.
was great.
Like I do.
That was great. I don't miss writing those college essays though, because that'll really make you realize how uninteresting your life has been. And being a parent has to be hard because you have to make sure that your child has like right amount of like interesting experiences to be like, yeah, but like don't traumatize them. You know what I'm saying? So I will put my pin on that one. But
Everybody has that. You got
college,
that, believe me.
no, writing, oh my God, writing college essays, that really made me sit down and be like, Jade, what have you done with your life? Like, what do you want to share? That's not the point. Okay, let's move into myth or
No, no, no,
fact.
that is the point. That was a great point. Wait, that was a beautiful point. Because
Okay, go ahead.
what have I done with my life? Jade, what have I done with
Yeah,
my life? No, Jade, who am I?
that
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 was
was
what they
hard to
wanted to
figure
know.
out. Yeah, that was
Right.
really hard
But
to
that's
like
what
sit
they want.
there at like what was I like how old are you when you're writing that? Like 16, 17 years
17.
old? Yeah, and you're just like, "Well, who am I outside of everything that has happened to me, right? Like what things have I made happen that I wanted to happen?" Because at that age, you're still kind of like, what did my parents curate for me? Like all of these things. And it's just like, okay, what has society told me to be? And you kind of have to like sit there and be like, I actually really don't know. I'm only 17 years old, and everything that I have been doing up until this point, at least in my end, has been like fluff material. Like it's just been like I've just been going through kind of like lights out, just like, all right, like this is what I'm supposed to do. We're going to get to this deadline. And then once this happens, then we'll go here. And then you have to sit there and be like, well, and then you want something interesting to happen? Like that was tough. That was a really hard time for me. I won't lie to you. I don't remember what
Mm,
I wrote my college essay about like for undergrad to get into. I think it might have been about my sister, like it which like that's not the point. But yeah, the to get into grad school, writing that essay was a lot easier because I had experiences. So like I had things that I can draw on and be like, this was an interesting experience, let me put that into this. But at the same time, like I had a passion for what I was going to grad school for. So like I felt like maybe there was that like push
mm-hmm.
for it. But
Yep.
that was really, I don't envy writing those college essays if you just grew up in just a nice little place where you're just like hanging out, where you're just like, what did I do except like come home and like, I don't know, play video games or watch TV and like do my homework and then go to sleep and do it all over again and play outside. Like, what was I doing? It wasn't that big of an impact versus like people are like, yeah, so when I was like 5 years old, like I got kidnapped. And then from the kidnapping, I learned that like I really have like a passion for discovering true crime. And that's the reason why I want to be and it's just like, bro, that did not happen
Yeah.
to me. That like I wasn't doing any of that. I'm so happy that like you
But
have that to draw on, but I did not.
what's funny though? Like that's the thing about that's why I start with identity work with my clients. Because underneath that first layer of what you think is obvious are a lot of ideas and a world view and places that they came from that we don't normally get to because we're just not operating on that. We're not being asked those questions. We're not being challenged sometimes. When you get to grad school, you've had more years to mature. You've had more time to develop your critical thinking skills, your analysis skills, etc. Right? You've had more experiences, like you said, that have challenged you,
Hmm.
right? For a lot of people, they get to college, and now, like if they didn't have in high school, they have their first love and maybe their first heartbreak. And the world starts getting shaped more by all the different things that could happen to you, and you're exposed more to the rest of the world, of course. But even in high school, like we pick things up when we're younger, childhood up. We have things, we pick those things up. We just don't go there. So,
Yeah.
listen, why look, we got people having midlife crises in their 40s and 50s, right? That was the joke. We were growing up on TV and movies. Someone's always got a midlife crisis, right? There's a reason why people have a midlife crisis, right? They've never actually tuned in. And then as time goes on, they're now not just not ask, like questioning, not looking in. They're avoiding too, right? It becomes, the avoidance becomes part of that. And then all of a sudden, everything just implodes. And then the hope is that they actually take that moment to figure this out, go to
Yeah.
therapy, I don't know, go to a monastery, meditate, whatever. Most of the time, the joke was always they buy a Porsche and remarry, or yeah, or a 20-year-old girlfriend, or if it's a guy, or whatever it might be. And then they got to start all over again, messing it up. And the hope is not that, of course, because we want to grow and evolve, right? And so, one thing I think is great about the world, I do think more people are actively questioning, period, right? And I think that's always a healthy thing, because you got to check in with yourself. But I always start with identity work. I want clarity for myself as much as I can on where someone is in their life journey in terms of looking at themselves and understanding themselves, where their curiosity is moving forward, because you need that when you're trying to grow and transform. And so much of transformational coaching is in, how do I help this person with this transformation? And to do that, they got to know what they're transforming from. And it's not just a profession, even when they think it is. Sometimes it's deeper. Those accountants that I was in grad school with, it was like, what am I doing? This isn't how I want to help people, right? I don't want to just help people by helping them make money. I want to help people by helping them change their lives. And for them, it was like work with young people,
Mhm.
right? So that's where we start transformation.
Yes. Okay. Let us move into myth or fact, and this is gonna be a speed round. So for anyone
Don't
that
speak. So
is new,
don't speak so much, Daisun.
no, 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 no. I mean, you can actually,
Quick
but I only
answers.
have like four questions for you.
Bring it on.
But if anyone is new, myth or fact is basically like a speed round where I will ask like a yes or no question, or like a question where Dason will be like, is it a fact or a myth? And he could just say fact or myth. So here we go. You have to follow your passion to be happy. Myth or fact?
Different
Okay, you
levels of
can tell us
happiness.
why. Yeah.
Different types of happiness.
Okay.
Once I read, it was, there's three different levels of happiness. The first is when you're doing what you have to do. The second is when you're doing what you want to do, and the third is when you're doing for other people. So, you could find happiness at home with your
Mm-hmm.
family while doing a job that you don't love, right? So, happiness is, I think, a mentality more than a thing you just like, oh, there's happiness. I'm gonna pick it up and put
Yeah.
it in my pocket.
Okay. Next one. If you're not making progress fast, then you're not working on your true purpose.
No, that is a myth.
Okay.
We live in a society and a culture, especially today, where everything's supposed to happen. And I know the speed. I had a 21-year-old client who was going to college in Florida, and he felt like he was behind. And I was like, behind what? He's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I should be like a CEO. I'm like, you're 21. You're not even 21. Not only are you 21, you're like credits wise a sophomore, freshman. Like, you behind, bro. Like, the idea that people have now that they're playing catch up, and that they're slow. And slow is bad. Everything has to happen quickly. That is a bad norm for a society and a culture. It's not a good space for us to be in. And people with ADHD, I got a buddy
Instant
losing money
gratification.
here, losing money there. I'm like, my man, invest in the S&P 500 and the low cost index fund, and stop spending money on altcoins. Losing money on altcoins. It's like everybody wants it fast, and that's not how you do anything well.
Take time. Okay, the next one, I think you kind of answered already, but your purpose is only one thing.
Yeah, I don't think so necessarily, but
Okay.
it could be one thing, and you actualize it in different ways over time.
Okay. And then last one, I'm going to change it around. Once you find your purpose, life just makes sense. Is that true? Myth or fact?
Your life or life in general?
Your life. Your life.
I think it helps clarify a lot. My experience as an individual, my experience as a coach, is that the more clarity people have about their purpose, the more their life falls into sync with that purpose.
Mm.
And yeah, I think so. I think things tend to go well for people when they have clarity about what they should be spending their time doing.
Okay. Okay. Well, that kind of wraps things up. But before we officially wrap up this episode, can you tell us where can people reach out to you? Have you be their coach? Like just follow you, whatever you want to share with the listeners. Where can we find you?
Yeah, sure. So day1lifecoaching.com is the website. It's the number one. I've got an Instagram page that it's been a while, but I usually post stuff on the Instagram page. I do a series called Walking Wisdom, where I'm just walking around the neighborhood talking about a specific topic that's come up with clients or people that have asked questions, just trying to offer some insight. It's been mostly geared towards parents and towards people with ADHD, but sometimes it gets a little bit more broad. But yeah, website, Instagram, those are the easiest ways to touch base. And I do free consultations. I've never understood, you know, I've never, even with therapists, like some therapists want to charge you for a consultation. Like, wait, what? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I want people to know what they're getting into. I want to know if they're the right fit. And I'm very honest with people. If I don't think that they're the right fit, I let them know. And quite honestly, if I think that I'm not equipped, right? If someone should be going to therapy, talking to a therapist or a psychologist first, I will tell them that because I think there is a lot of toxic coaching out there. People, steering their clients in directions that are not necessarily making things better, and coaches that cross the line into therapy way too often when they're not equipped to, right? And that's something that, rightfully so, people have some concern about coaching with. But for me, I'm about starting with the person, what they're looking to create for themselves, and then we kind of build out from there and figure out a logical way to get there. So you hit me up, free consultation, Day One Life Coaching, Day One Life Coaching on Instagram, Facebook, blah, blah, blah.
Cool. And I will be sure to link those in the description box below. So if y'all would like to reach out, you have all of the links. But with that being said, thank you, Daisun, so much for joining us and chatting with me. I really appreciated it. I guess we'll wrap things up. Yeah, thanks guys for listening.
Thank you.
I hope that thank you, Daisun. I hope that you have a good day or a good night, and I hope that you're well.